Good evening. I'm calling to order the regular board meeting of Las Virgenes Unified School District of September 10th. Have nothing to report out of closed session, and we will do the flag salute. If you could please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That logo looks good.
Thank you very much. Approval of tonight's agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second. Oops, sorry.
Okay, moved and seconded. Student board member.
A lot of excitement on that one.
Aye. Board.
Hi.
Aye.
Thank you. We have an agenda. Approval of minutes of the August 27th.
So moved. I'll second.
Thank you. Student board member.
Aye.
Board.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Staff board communication, Dr. Stepnoski.
Madam President, members of the board, a couple things to share. Fired up, Mr. Klein. First up is something yellow. September is Child Cancer Awareness Month. And we've partnered for years now, I think probably well over a decade now, with the Something Yellow Foundation, which was founded by Kevin Cardasco Sr. That's him on the right, top and bottom. At the top right is Mr. Cardasco and his family addressing the audience at a Calabasas football game. Students behind them, and band behind them. And the right-hand side is Mr. Cardasco Sr. addressing students at AC Stell. And so the Something Yellow football game will be this weekend, Friday night, 7 p.m. at Calabasas High School, and it will also be the Las Virgenes Cup game, Agora versus Las Virgenes. So we're very proud to support Something Yellow. It was a student of ours, Kevin Cardasco Jr., who passed away from cancer. I was at the funeral, remember it quite well, and the Cardasco family has kept September and childhood cancer awareness advocacy front and center. So we are proud to support and sponsor them this Friday, 7 p.m. Calabasas. Next slide. Similar to that, Calabasas Something Yellow is starting off something new, and it is they are taking over the old Calabasas Classic. I think it was a 5K that was around for years. Then the I think the community center did it for a year or two, and it kind of fell apart. So they're bringing it back, and that's fantastic. So that'll be Sunday, September 29th. Schools aren't really directly involved, but happy to support the Kevin Cardasco Foundation and Something Yellow. Next slide. Something we are putting together, I mentioned last board meeting, is September 25th at Calabasas Performing Arts Center. Will be Dopamine. We did this last April. A panel discussion. That's a photo on the bottom left of the panel discussion from the main stage at Calabasas. And it's about digital wellness for kids navigating technology and digital age, emphasis on the impact at schools. Should be a fantastic event. Tickets are free. And the Calabasas PFC will be pushing out a link to get your tickets, your reservations.
Dr. Stepp, will you make sure that Maria, Ms. Wickstrom pushes information out to the board, please?
You got it. Next slide. So got a chance to visit some of our campuses today. We are 60 some projects going on with Measure S funds. And here's a shot from Round Meadow. The brand new field opened up at Round Meadow, and Principal Exner reported that the students love it. And so this was a shot after school was over, but that's what it looks like. It dramatically expands the space they have available to play and gather. And so that's super exciting and great to have that in place. Next slide, Mr. Klein. This is a shot at the solar at Bay Laurel. Looks very similar to Lupin. So that is well under construction. They think that'll be done by Thursday. Next slide. Dr. Cyphers and I got a chance to ride up on the scissor fork there as well. So we went up to get aerial shot of the solar. So that's a shot that I took just today of the solar on the left-hand side, a Bay Laurel campus behind it as well. And that should be done by Thursday. They'll roll out of there, and the company doing our field will be in there full time to get that Bay Laurel field ready as well. So super excited to continue to expand our play spaces for our students. Next slide. Speaking of expanded play spaces, there's Chaparral. Chaparral looking fantastic with their field going in and the infield coming in shortly after that. So they're probably a couple weeks away from having their field very much ready, and students can be more excited. And the next picture is going to be on the right-hand side. Wait, pause for a second, Jim. On the right-hand side of this is where the solar installation will go. And the next slide right now, Jim, is a picture of that. There it is.
Hmm.
So the pillars are up for Chaparral, and there are two locations for solar there. One will be over the fields. So we've got the fields, organic infill, and they're going to have shade, which will all be fantastic. Of course, we just missed out on this heat we experienced, but it'll be in place going forward. There's a second location for solar also at Chaparral. It'll be over the staff parking lot, and staff are ecstatic to have shade for their vehicles throughout the day. And next slide. That's it for me. Mitch Klein.
All right, Madam President, members of the board, school year is in full swing, which means we are in full swing with all of our activities for students. It is going to be National Hispanic Heritage Month next month on September 15th, and the team has put together an amazing array of activities, videos, presentations, all sorts of things for teachers to do in the classroom to celebrate this exciting month, including some special guest visitors from some authors. We've got a lot of great activities going on, and we're looking forward to getting going with that. And secondly, we are doing something new this year. We are actually bringing in live performances now from the Music Center through a partnership with the Music Center and the Met. The Music Center is going to send over an entire company to do a performance for each grade level. So on October 8th, about 10:45 to 11:30, we will have the Music Center's Diavolo group, and they are artists, gymnasts, dancers, and actors or performers, and they are going to be performing for our kids live, and our kids are going to have the opportunity to ask them questions and talk to them and share the arts in an exciting new way for us. It's also a great use of our performing arts and education centers because we can bring these educational opportunities to our elementary kids, which is fantastic. We will be busing all the kids from school sites, from the school sites into the Music Center on the 8th. We're splitting it up into two different events or two different sets on the 8th. So some of the elementary schools will be in the first group, and then the second group will be another set of elementary schools.
So is this a field trip for them? They will go by bus to this?
Yes, they will go by bus. The kids will go by bus to get to the event, and this one will be at the CPAC. We have events, as you can see, going all throughout the year. We have 5 total events. They're going to bounce back and forth between the CPAC and the APAC.
So it'll be all like when it says 5th grade, it'll
It's
be.
gonna be all 5th grade. Yeah, so we're gonna do, so the entire 5th grade group is gonna be divided into 2 sets. We're not doing all of them at once. It's half of the schools and the other half of the schools, so.
Will you let Ms. Bergstrom know so she can let the board know the dates and
Absolutely.
times?
We'll get the event. It is 10:45 is when it starts. It's 10:45 to 11:30. It's about 45 minutes. But we'll make sure that you get a reminder email of
Thank
that as
you.
well.
Thank you. That's great.
Wow, yeah.
Chambers.
Madam President, members of the board, I'm pleased to share that we'll be launching the 24-25 micro credential program later on this month. We're offering several pathways that focus on neurobehavioral coaching, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and teacher empowerment and growth. This year, we're shifting to an in-person instruction model with classes being offered at the district office and AE Wright. And a special thank you to our Center for Educational Excellence team for their work to get the program up and running this year.
Ms. Davenport.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I am so happy to report that at the September 3rd board meeting of the Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, their board unanimously voted to continue its grant partnership with our district. And as you know, for many years now, the Water District has awarded a significant grant for our 4th and 5th grade science classes. It's about $214,000 over 2 years. So that we can include educational curriculum on water, its source, the water district's facilities and systems, and of course, conservation efforts. And the partnership between the district, our district and the water district has been very successful with a profound impact on our students. So we're really grateful for our continued partnership with them as we work together to prepare our students to be responsible stewards of this very precious resource.
Dr. Scott.
Madam President, members of the board. It's been a great 2 weeks with 4 of our 5 secondary schools having their back to school nights. I've been able to attend all of them. I don't know if we can get to the next slide. So it was awesome to see in the top right corner, there are some of our leadership students, and I stopped and chatted with them for a little bit and like, oh, can I take your picture? And they're like, is this going to go in the press? I'm like, I will share it at the board meeting, and they were very excited. So I wanted to
Aw,
make sure that you
Sweet.
saw some of our leadership students. All of the schools had their ASB leadership students helping direct parents where to go. They were super friendly. Parents seemed happy. Teachers were crushing it with their presentations to parents. They were fun nights.
Mm.
We've got Calabasas this Thursday, so looking forward to that one. And then on the 30th, Calabasas had their first home football game, and it was a great turnout and a great win for Calabasas. They crushed it. It was 48-12 as a score, running clock at the end. It was a great night for the school to see all the kids come, and I mean, I couldn't help but take pictures all night with the beautiful backdrop
Mhm.
there. Friday night lights, nothing beats that. So great couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Dr. Lucian.
Madam President, members of the board, we just started our CASC program this year. That program has been growing exponentially. We have over 100 candidates now, candidates and coaches from well over 20 districts. So that's been exciting to be a part of and continue to build our capacity as a leader in the region. Tonight, highlights is the unaudited actuals. Steve has been looking forward to it for a couple months. I bring that forward to share with you gratitude for our amazing finance team who works when many are off over the summer. They're burning the midnight oil to make sure we close the books. So hats off to them and appreciate their work.
Dr. Cypress.
Madam President, members of the board, this past year, Las Virgenes launched our first ever classified executive leadership program. We've had 2 full sessions with the group, one of them on change leadership and California systems for coaching and capacity. Tomorrow, our first cohort will be with Ms. Chambers and I for the debut of personal law and leadership. We're looking forward to being with the team. Throughout the 4 sessions that we'll offer, the candidates will learn skills in culture building, employee evaluations, as well as having hard conversations and talent acquisition. Looking forward to meet with the team tomorrow.
That concludes staff communication. Oh, sorry,
Ms. Falk?
Ms. Falk.
Madam President, members of the board, there we go. Yesterday, Dr. Seyfried, Ms. Davenport, and myself had the pleasure of being in the Bay Laurel NPR for a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade competition. And it was fierce and competitive. And by all accounts, I don't know, I unofficially think the 4th grade might have won, but it was very awesome to be on campus and see the enthusiasm that the kids had, all competing against each other in a really nice way.
What was the competition?
What were they competing for?
What were they doing?
What, yeah.
Oh, there are different ones. They had to pass a wiffle ball back. They had to pass scarfs back. They had to throw it up, clap it, and then pass it back. They had to high five each other. And then the winning group got popsicles. And then the quietest group also got bonus points. So the little zeros you're seeing there are 0 noise level. So it was it was great to see.
That's great.
Now we're done with staff communication.
Thank you very much. Ms. Westerberg, welcome back to a new school year.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Calabasas and Agora have been getting into routine recently. This week, CHS has a Uba Tuba fundraiser and a football game against Agora on Friday night. The theme is Something Yellow to support Kevin Cordasco and his foundation. Coming up, Calabasas and Agora have their first club rush of the year, a spirit week, a pep rally, and homecoming. Homecoming is on the 28th, and its theme is Tropical Paradise for Calabasas, and Agora's is on the 21st, and the theme is Disco Fever. Calabasas and Agora also have freshman elections coming up soon. We are looking forward to what's coming up.
That's great. Thank you. Ms. Stein.
Thank you. And as mentioned earlier, it is back to school night season. And I had the wonderful opportunity to go to Round Meadow and Willow. And it's so much fun to welcome the parents back and to share with them that it was a year ago that we passed Measure S, and at the schools that I was at, they were seeing progress and they really appreciated that. So thank you.
Mr. Lawrence.
Similarly thrilled to be going to the back to school nights. I got to cheat, so I apologize to all you guys. I didn't take on additional schools. We're spread out over 3 schools this year, so I just went to our school. So that I feel like I totally cheated. But next year I'll expand beyond those. We're down to 2 again. But it was great to be back there. It was great to see the teachers. What I noticed and what I always say is when I go back to these back to school nights is we know it's a partnership with the parents, and it has been so hot at these back to school nights, but you still see the auditoriums packed with parents. You see fourth and fifth grade parents coming back for the fourth year. You see eighth grade parents coming back for the third year. And it's because they're really invested in the community. So I just think that's just a wonderful sign of the support the community has for our schools. And I love seeing it. And thank you for the great introduction at Agoura High School.
Thank you. Ms. Gaines.
I want to echo back to school season, and I think the board knows that Chaparral was canceled. We had a power outage this week, so hopefully that will get rescheduled.
It's back on the schedule for October 1st.
Okay, I'll take a look because I was signed up for that. And this morning I attended along with Ms. Menges, I attended the Calabasas Chamber Education Committee meeting at which the featured speaker was Dr. Stepanowski, and he did a great job sort of presenting the state of the district.
That's great. Thank you. Ms. Mingus.
As most of the board members have been saying, it is back to school night season, and I was able to go to several different schools. I was at Lindero with Mr. Lawrence and at Agoura High School with Mr. Lawrence. And the beauty about the high schools especially is that before there are usually 2 meeting spots, and it's nice to have 2 board members there for that. And I was also able to go to White Oak and A.E. Wright's back to school nights. And I don't know how many people in the community got to go to the carnival this year that was sponsored by the foundation. But I was there on Saturday night and helping behind the table. And there was just something about it that the vibe was just different to me. It was like everything was humming and the right hand knew what the left hand was doing. And we met with the foundation, and hopefully they didn't have all of their final numbers, but hopefully it was very successful and the weather actually cooperated for the most part. And as Ms. Gaines mentioned, I was at the chamber ed meeting, and Dr. Stepanowski did a fantastic job.
I'd be remiss without saying the whole community owes the Cutbill family a big thanks for sponsoring the beer garden.
To be fair, they asked, I sponsored, and they said, would you like to sponsor a ride? And I said, put me down for anything. So, but that's fine. It was well done. And my own comments would be just thanks to the foundation. They do a lot. They've got some great events coming up that you'll hear more about. And Ms. Mingus is right. Carnival was terrific. So.
That's great.
Okay. Now moving into the part of the agenda for hearings of delegations and or comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. So I have one speaker card. If you'd like to come forward to the podium. So at this point in the agenda, if we don't have an item agendized, then the board cannot have a dialogue about it, right? Because it's not been on the agenda, which is came out on Friday. So, but we are always happy when members of our community feel motivated and passionate and want to come and speak to us about any variety of issues that are on their mind. So,
is it possible that someone one of the elected members of the board would get back to me on my comments?
Yes, I think we can probably have staff make clarifying comments. That's,
Okay.
so we'll let you have your 3 minutes
All right.
to let you know there is kind of a beep with the 1 minute left. Sometimes people think that means they're done. So,
I'm going to try to keep it under 3
Sure.
minutes, but
thank you.
I appreciate your patience if it goes over a little bit. First of all, I want to thank the elected board members for your service. It really is very appreciated. Anyway, moving on with my comments. As of July 15th, 2024, the Safety Act was signed into law, and California became the first state to bar school districts from requiring staff to notify parents of their child's gender identification. After learning about this bill, I reviewed the Las Virgenes School District Handbook, and I discovered there was a code in effect, 46010.1. And let me just quote a portion of that is the reason I'm here tonight, that the school authorities may excuse any pupil from school for the purpose of obtaining confidential medical services without the consent of the pupil's parent or guardian. That brings up a lot of questions. Does that mean the school can send a child to take a vaccine without knowing the child's medical history? Or to be counseled on taking puberty blockers? Or treating an STD? Or having an abortion without parents' knowledge? Because it sure sounds like that. These are serious issues that have serious emotional and physiological consequences that require parental care and guidance. Special interest groups have wrongly persuaded state lawmakers that children need to be protected from their parents. Their justification for such laws is that children ages 12 to 17 may not want their parents to know about any of the aforementioned reasons why a parent is not informed when their child is being treated medically. The Supreme Court follows the doctrine that parents have a fundamental right to direct the upbringing, education, and health care of their children. Parents are assumed to be the best caretakers for their child unless proven unfit. I'm here to ask the elected members of the school board for proactive action. In 2023, the federal court judge, Roger Bennett, found it unlawful to force teachers to hide information about a student's change of gender identity from their parents. I am asking that this district enforce that judgment made by this federal court judge. I quote from the summary judgment of the Judge Roger Bennett, who heard the case and brought two middle school teachers against the Escondido School District. Quote, a child's state right to privacy includes a right of confidentiality from their own parents after the child has expressed a desire to be publicly at school known by a new name and referred to by new pronouns seems unlikely. After all, one element of a right to privacy is reasonable expectation of privacy. A student who announces the desire to be publicly known in school by a new name and gender or pronoun is referred to by teachers and students and others by said new name, gender, or pronoun, can hardly be said to have a reasonable expectation of privacy or expect non-disclosure. Simply because the decision of a parent is not agreeable to a child or because it involves risk does not automatically transfer the power to make that decision from the parent to some agency or officer of the state. I include in my email to the elected board members a summary of this federal judge's judgment. I'm also requesting the elected members of this district to strike the California Code 4601.0.1 from the school district handbook. It is time to stand up and speak up for the rights of parents. Special interest groups have lobbied for the last 50 years for laws that violate the rights of parents so that they can gain access to our children. It's time for a pushback from the public school elected officials. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Izad. Ms. Falk, do you want to give any information without us having like a discussion here about our practice?
Yeah, so the current practice in Las Virgenes is we don't allow students to check themselves out without parent permission. And even though Ed Code allows 18-year-olds to check themselves out, we still require parent permission for an 18-year-old to leave campus. So now, regardless of the age of the student in Las Virgenes, a parent has to sign permission for a student to leave campus during the day.
One other question. She was citing board policy. My understanding is that's direct state law mandated language that we've lifted. Is that correct?
So it's a combination of state law and the new Title IX regulations are both related to, not the attendance, but the other portion of it.
But I guess my question being, even if we wanted to change that, these are the confines that a school district is put under. So if the right court of opinion to be adjudicating this with is the state legislature. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments very much. And I know you emailed the board, so I will reply on behalf of the board just to follow up, but Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I lost my- okay.
Would you like a motion to
Oh,
approve
I'm moving
consent?
on to consent A.
I move to approve consent A.
I'll second.
Thank you. Student board member?
Aye.
Board.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Consent B.
I move to approve consent B.
Second.
Thank you. This is a board only vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Action items. Approval of classified salary schedules. Dr. Cyphers or Ms. Chambers?
So the Dr. Gleason one.
Dr. Gleason? I'll take anybody. Who you got?
Madam President, members of the board, our human resources team brought forward the AB 1200 last month with the settlement that is attached. We now have the salary schedules here for approval. It's our practice to bring these forward to just show the alignment to the settlement.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. This is board only, I believe, is it not? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Approval of Resolution 124, adoption of GAN limit as determined by Article 13B to the California Constitution.
Madam President, members of the board, the GAN limit is a fascinating history lesson that's connected to Prop 13. Happy to go into it, but essentially was a measure to ensure that appropriations had a limit to it. Local governments need to establish that we are within the appropriate 1979 threshold, and we are.
Yes, very straightforward. Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 1-24.
I'll second.
Thank you. Student board member?
Aye.
Board.
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of unaudited actuals financial report for 2023-24. Dr. Gleason.
Madam President, members of the board, I know the board is very involved in the development of the budget process through many layers of feedback and collaboration. Tonight, I will go through the unaudited actuals where we landed. Of course, when we close the books at the end of the fiscal year, this is when we are reconciling encumbrances that didn't manifest into expenditures as well as revenues that we did or did not anticipate. Happy to report that our revenues are up from anticipated, about 3.6 million. Lottery money came in a little higher. Local revenues, especially with respect to lease and rental fees, international student enrollment, and high interest rates have benefited us. In terms of, go ahead.
And these are these are items are ones that we can't predict, right? That's why you would do this at the end.
Certainly throughout the year, we bring the board, we're required to bring an interim budget as in December and in March, and then the adopted budget in June. We do not reconcile all factors until unaudited actuals for things like interest and other like rental fees to finalize those numbers. But we try and utilize our estimates to make sure that we take a conservative approach. The reason we came in the green is because we took that conservative approach. And we've outlined that, of course, for the board in our executive summaries and in all our presentations, that this budget was built on data of historical trends that we were hoping to buckle. And spoiler alert, we did. But that's I don't want to get ahead to slide 7. Certificated or salaries, big adjustment in our services and other operating expenditures. It's a little misleading to see a $3 million difference there. We have a number of one-time grants that are unique to LVUSD. One is the CalShape grant, and the other is a $2 million ECE grant through the Center for Educational Excellence. And so we book that as a full expenditure and only then reverse to the actuals at the end of the fiscal year, making it look like it is higher than it is. Ending fund balance, we're in good position, all things considered. With Fund 17, which is the committed fund for the board, going into some economic uncertainty as well as an election right now, having this position while coming off of the ADA reductions, the enrollment declines that many districts are facing, as well as the COVID offset, this will help us weather and help the board have tools to navigate the future. Multi-year factors, of course, every interim report last year since the first interim, we planned this budget to have a 3.94% COLA. We found out, if you remember, the tax collections of the prior year were not fully realized until November. and that the state was over its skis in terms of its assumptions. And so we had a 75% reduction in this year's COLA, which was a dramatic for many districts, especially given the enrollment and the COVID picture. We, regardless, have weathered that. But of course, our anticipated ending fund balance, of course, is adjusted as a result of it. Some troubling things at the state level, just to keep watching. They were necessary to get through the adopted budget. One is the rainy day fund that had been established over the last few years during good economic times. It's been, for the most part, totally wiped out. And we've also borrowed from the future. So we did not receive our full Prop 98 guarantee. We have an IOU that should be passed on to us starting in 26, 27 through 2035, 36. So with all that, I want to shout out to the team. I can look at every single member of the board and the team for really a 12-month push on enrollments. We happy to report that we're at 9789 at the time I put the slide together. That's 227 students up, but you also have to factor in the last 5 years, we've lost 1 3/4% of students. So that really is a 400 to 500 student turnaround. And that has led to us really being in a position that is unique compared to our surrounding districts. This is the revenue differences that you see as a result of that enrollment. This has allowed for us to kind of cushion that structural deficit a bit that we have as a result of the restricted one-time funds. We will always have some form of deficit spending as long as we have restricted one-time money in the bank. All that to say, this is our best assumptions of multi-year projections are after in the first and second interim reports coming to a December and March board meeting near you. Bottom line, this picture looks better than it did at the adopted budget. We were able to roll back some of the cuts that we were anticipating while also delaying any transfer of Fund 17. Of course, this is a conservative picture as well, because this model still assumes a declining enrollment.
Right.
And we will continue to assume that declining enrollment and be transparent about that until we have multiple years of enrollment gain or flatline, just to be prudent. With respect to enrollment, worth mentioning, we talked about this at the Finance Committee. We anticipate, our demographer anticipates that we have about 330 students that will be coming to our district as a result of the new construction over the course of the next few years. So that factor, along with our enrollment push, our signature programs, the great work of Ed Services to create an extraordinary educational experience, the marketing efforts of Mr. Klein, and of course, HR hiring the best and the brightest. We have a lot of reason for optimism as we move forward. I'll hold off there. I'm happy to answer any questions if you want the extended cut.
I'll make a motion to approve unaudited actuals.
I'll second. But I just want to say thank you, Dr. Gleason, and your team for this. Budgeting conservatively with the information that we know at the time, because we never know from year to year what COLA is going to be, how much we're going to be funded, has served this district very well. And under your leadership, this is terrific. And that we're planning ahead with the affordable housing, the workforce housing units that are coming in within 3 of our cities that we're aware of. We are prepared for those students, and that's great that we have the foresight and we're planning now for when we do receive more students. So thank you.
Procedurally, as the board knows, but for the public's good, we will now turn over our books to an independent auditor who will review them and then present their findings to the board in December or at the latest January.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Gleason. So we have made a motion?
Yep, and a second.
Seconded?
Yep.
Thank you. If no other discussion, Ms. Westerberg?
Aye.
Board?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you and your team for all of that and for your constant vigilance and being conservative, and the enrollment is tremendous news. So much so that when we get the letters from LACO, they're always like, well, now you're going to be down a lot, and no, we're not. So terrific news.
Yeah.
Moving on, approval of resolution 224, authorizing district staff to approve the assignment of the solar projects from Forefront Licensing LLC to CSI electrical contractors.
Madam President, members of the board, an operational element, as you know from approval of the contract with Forefront and CSI, Forefront was doing the design work for the solar project. CSI does the construction. When Forefront is complete, we need to have a formal assignment of the contract to CSI. We have been bringing, if you remember in the prior board meeting, we brought 3 separate agenda items, and we can do that for the other 10 sites. But the board has approved this through the contract that you initially approved, and you will also approve when we bring these back to the board. So the question is, can Dr. Stepanowski and I, in order to continue the flow of work between board meetings, conduct that assignment and then have you validate that at subsequent board meetings?
Motion to approve 2-24, move with all haste.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
So the district and you have oversight on all of this, correct?
Correct. So we cross our T's, dot our I's. It's that assignment of a contract. We want to make sure Forefront's work is entirely done. Otherwise, it's hard to pay CSI to pay Forefront. So we've got close eyes on it.
Thank you.
Can you speak to construction delays? We have roughly, and also I'm talking bigger picture here, not just solar. So we have roughly 60 construction projects going on around the district. What would you say is on time and what would you say is delayed?
Like on a global level,
Mm-hmm.
most things are delayed. We intended to have our new fields in before the start of the school, so our fencing in before the start of school, as well as we were on time for probably our most critical project, which is the HVAC. Every single day, if you, as the board knows, but for the public, our 3 facilities managers, Julie Abbott, Sean Vumaska, and Scott McAllister, they're constantly working with different contractors who are all managing their expectations, and they have to push and then they nudge, and then they sample soil, and then that has to get tested, and that delays things, or realizing that we need lights on solar panels and a change order is needed. So a lot of that paperwork part of the job really impacts the ability to be fully efficient.
I think anyone that goes through construction knows about those, particularly on this kind of scale. And you're right, the biggest project, the hugest project, one we didn't expect to be done for another year, half the H building, which is so 18 classrooms now. And that was a tremendous, we thought we were going to have to literally move 36 classrooms out of one building. And we managed to do it and get half of it done ahead of time, and the rest will be done ahead of that second phase schedule. So
I would also say it's very complex. And so when you say projects are delayed, it sounds like Las Verges did something wrong. Well, for example, let's look at solar. So we were planning on doing solar at the high schools this summer. DSA, the Department of State Architects, changed the requirements for the footing and made them more substantial, safer, which is great. So we had to re-engineer that solar. So the solar first couldn't do it quick enough to have the high schools ready. So we had to shift. So now you're doing solar at Bay Laurel, at Round Meadow, at Chaparral, at Lupin. That impacts turf because many of the solars, some are going over parking structures, but many are going over fields to provide shade for students. And so, at Bay Laurel, the installation of the field has stopped because of the photos I showed you earlier.
right.
We can't be doing both things. You've got 60 projects going at, 14 sites.
Constant
You've
ballet,
got
isn't it?
almost
Yes.
3 projects per site, and sometimes they interfere, overlap.
Mhm.
The company working on our field is also doing the LA Rams field, which was delayed in Woodland Hills. They tried to open that up and it was delayed by over a month. And so there's lots of things that impact each other along with
Exactly.
supply chain issues. So our staff's on, as Dr. Gleason said, following up aggressively. We've got great
I think
help
our
from
staff's
Barbara
been
Beatty.
terrific. I mean, we did that field trip where we went and looked at all our construction projects, and it was incredible, the amount of work that's been done and how they are continuing to pivot and change and do multiple projects on one campus. So
Yeah,
absolutely very happy with M&O and the bond project manager on this. So
Sorry.
go ahead.
I do think your DSA point is a really important one because most people who think of construction or think they work with their local county planning department and it goes through a 3 to 6 week process and it's going to be approved, and they don't realize there are 10,000 public schools in the state of California, all of which are every year putting in their own little projects, and they sit in TPS reports waiting for months, in some cases a year to be approved. And there's nothing that we can do to move that faster, except for what we already did, which was, I think as Ms. Keppel mentioned, get ahead of it and we did everything. We even submitted them to DSA before we even had the money, because we had a sense that maybe we would have the money. So I think that because we've all seen some of the emails from members of the community that are frustrated, we don't have more AC. And I think everyone here collectively says, yes, we agree. We're frustrated. We can't move faster. We have the funding. We simply cannot move faster because the state of California.
Everything is scheduled. There's different phases to the bond. We cannot do. It's meant to be over the life of, 12 years. We have a phase A, phase B, phase C, and we're in phase A. So unfortunately, the highest priority things went there first and things will roll out. There was no way to sort of do everything at once.
Yeah.
Everything is staged. Tremendous appreciation for Ms. Abbott and her teams.
Many districts don't, to Mr. Lawrence's point, many districts don't have the program manager and the architecture and engineering done. They start to contemplate that after the bond. We had that in place beforehand.
Yeah.
With Balfour Beatty and Teleco, and the DSA plan submitted well in a year in advance to the Measure S passage, which allowed us, because it sat in DSA for a year, allowed us to launch the H building at Calabasas, which is over a $7 million project and one of the worst HVAC systems we have. Lots of the work can't be seen. HVAC is pretty hard to see. It's in the roof. It's in the roofing. All of our roofing work as well. Can't see any of that. We had almost 200 leaking roofs. Now, that's not an issue when the temperature is 110 and rain is
But it will
4
be
months
soon.
away.
Yeah.
It'll be an issue in January. And so, but the fields, conversely, are something that is very visible for everyone to see as they go in.
Dr. Stepp, I want to go back to something you said that is very important, is what you said is most districts, they'll pass a bond measure and then they'll start from square one, and it will take years 5 years
Yeah.
before they start their first project.
Teleq told us that. They said their experience with almost all their clients around the state were that a district passes a bond and then says, okay, now what? Okay, now we have to start moving on things. And we were ready to go so that when that first series funded, things started to happen. So
And that goes back to the
yeah.
board's vision back in 2018, when we hired a company to do it was a Canon Designs, I think, that did the facility needs
Yep.
assessment. And so that was the framework, looking at 15 sites, the largest, we're the largest landowner or custodian in the region, largest employer. That facilities master plan needs assessment was the blueprint. And it's a sense, because in your home, the air conditioning is 10 years old and the roof is 20 years old. And so you have a sense what's going to break down next to your house. And that document gives us the same thing for Las Virgenes as a blueprint to move forward on all of our construction projects. So we actually have been working on this since 2017 and 18.
And I will say that I'm very impressed. Like I said in my opening staff board communication, was going out to back to school nights, and the principals are showing off in their opening speech to parents the improvements that have been done over the summer and are in process. And parents are really pleased. And that was one of the driving forces that helped me get involved in our schools. As when my kids were in school, it was back in the Measure R days when Willow, where my kids were, got a new playground right after Measure R passed, or it seemed like overnight. It wasn't, but the responsiveness of the district is to be commended. So thank you, Dr. Gleason, and your
Thank you.
team.
And the board continues to receive updates in facilities meetings and through even finance meetings and various committees on all of this. So appreciate all of that work and us staying on top of everything and all the information that is provided to the board. And just a word about our Measure S oversight, Citizens Oversight Committee.
We actually have a Measure S Citizens Oversight Committee, I believe, scheduled for next Friday.
Mhm.
And we present our financials, where we are in our net position, as well as an overall state of the economy, similar to what we did tonight in terms of unaudited actuals. They, for the public, that Citizens Oversight Committee gets a report from our independent auditor as well before coming to the board, just to ensure there's all those checks and balances. Just to build on what was shared, we took the board's vision to launch DSA approvals a year in advance of the bond passing for CHS HVAC has allowed us to start and be able to initiate that project. We're doing the same right now. We have Round Meadow, Lupin, Chaparral, Sumac HVAC are through DSA. So when the funding is there, we'll be ready to rock.
Thank you, Dr. Gleason.
There's already a motion, a second, Kate.
Okay, then student board member,
Aye.
board.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Approval of resolution 324, education protection account for fiscal years 2024, 2025. Dr. Gleason.
Madam President, members of the board, sorry for the loud sound there. Excited about this resolution. The educator protection account came into effect, I believe, in 2012, along with the local control funding formula. And we are required to certify to the community that in this case, around $2 million that was appropriated to us through that did not go to administrator salaries.
Yes. That one's just pretty straightforward, like a
Motion,
compliance.
motion.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Student board member,
Aye.
board.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Public hearing, certification of compliance with Ed Code 60119, textbooks and instructional materials.
Ms. Falk.
Madam President, members of the board, California Ed Code Section 60119 requires local governing boards to hold an annual public hearing and adopt a resolution to determine if students have enough textbooks and instructional materials. The hearing must be held before the end of the 8th week of school. And tonight, the resolution certifies that students do have enough textbooks and instruction materials in the following subjects of reading, language arts, math, science, and history. And all instructional materials are aligned with the academic content standards and the current framework adopted by the State Board of Education.
So I have a couple questions on this. Should we open and close the public hearing and then address
Yes,
it? Okay.
let's.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
Thank you. Student board member,
Aye.
board.
Aye.
Okay. And would you like to close the public hearing?
Yep. Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. Student board member,
Aye.
board.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Lawrence.
I heard at back to school night from a couple teachers, from a couple parents as well as who heard similarly that math teachers are saying they don't have the math books they need, that they don't have, that the district has not paid for the books or the online component of it to continue it, and they're short them, that we canceled it. Can you maybe, that was a look on my face when I heard it, but I chose not to engage in the classroom. I just smiled and sat on my hands. But if you could maybe address that a little bit, because that's a little bit of buzz out there, that there might be something on the.
Right. I'm going to actually let Dr. Scott answer this, but I believe they're referring to the pilot, and not every teacher is piloting at every grade level. So every teacher would not have access to all of the piloting materials because every teacher is not piloting. But I'll let Dr. Scott add some additional information.
And maybe just if you clarify, if a teacher believed they were still in need of that materials, why would they no longer have it?
So it's not that they would no longer have it. There was some shifting of materials because the shipment of some of the pilot materials got shipped incorrectly. And so our math department chairs, the middle schools help to coordinate that. So at this point, all teachers should have what they need, but to start the school year, there were some delays with the right materials. Like they sent all the teacher additions to one school, and so we had to move some materials around. And then the Carnegie at the high school, the workbooks were not there right at the start, but all workbooks have been delivered at
Okay.
this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make a motion. Oh, sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I have sort of a general question. I was just wondering, all classes, all levels, are they actual paper, hard textbooks, or are some online these days? What's the ratio?
So both. So the human geo books, we're going to do a digital version this year and have a textbook set in the classroom. And because the adoption is coming up soon. So some have both, some have one, some have neither. So it depends on the subject.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Approval of resolution 424. Student board member,
Aye.
board.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Moving on to information items, adoption of new board policy 0410, non-discrimination in district programs and activities.
Ms. Falk.
Madam President, members of the board, the California School Board Association has recently updated Board Policy 410 non-discrimination in district programs and activities. And these updates primarily reflect changes, as the previous ones I brought forward to you, as a result of the reauthorization of the Title IX regulations, and in particular for this one, the California Assembly Bill 1078. The Title IX updates broaden the scope of prohibited discrimination, and the Assembly Bill strengthens the protections related to instructional materials and curriculum content, ensuring non-discrimination in those.
Okay, any discussion?
The only thing that I saw was on page 6 and 11, the last paragraph on, page 6, and then it is repeated on page 11 is kind of a duplication, of some of the bolded out. So some of it could be struck out.
I'm happy to look into that.
I just had a random question because I'm always interested by the latest buzzword they want to throw in there. So what are sex stereotypes? And how is that a discriminatory topic? Because it's in addition to gender, sexual identity, everything else. So somebody came up with it. What does it mean?
So a sex stereotype would be, for example, assuming that cheerleaders are all females, and that having a male cheerleader would be, saying that they're all female would be a sex stereotype. Those kinds of things.
So, but how do you discriminate against a sex stereotype without discriminating against a gender? Because if you were not to allow a male to be on the cheerleading team, you'd be discriminating against the gender. So what is the protected class we're adding here? And what are they being protected from?
So it's really just not discriminatory, not allow a student to try out, because historically it's a female sport. So some of them are kind of duality.
Okay.
But sex stereotype, I think, is more about the speech part of it, assuming that, for example, students, making a stereotype about a particular sport or a particular activity based on the sex of that person.
Okay. This feels like to my maybe dinosaur brain that would fall under gender. Like we don't need to be creating new categories. Okay.
But to be clear, I'm not creating them.
I know you're not. No, this was the royal we coming from Sacramento, that somebody who has time and way too much
This is
time on their
actually the
hands.
federal government. This is
These are-
not-
these
Even
are-
more time on their hands, the federal government.
This is Sacramento and lawyers at CSBA drafting
You
policy.
said this one's
It's
Department of
Title IX.
Education.
These all
Okay.
this is all federal regulation.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Feds.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Adoption of new board policy 1312.3, uniform complaint procedures.
So Madam President, member of the board, CSBA has introduced an updated board policy 1312.3 titled Uniform Complaint Procedures, aimed at standardizing the process for addressing complaints related to protected classes, discrimination, harassment, bullying, other behaviors within the school district and county offices of education. This policy update is part of CSBA's ongoing efforts to ensure compliance with the recent legislative changes, including the revised Title IX regulations effective August 1st, 2024, and again, Assembly Bill 1078.
Thank you very much. So any discussion on this one? This one seems
No.
pretty straightforward,
No,
bringing
thank
us
you.
into compliance. Okay, well, if there is no further discussion, that's our last information item. We are hereby adjourned.